In this video, we are interviewing Joe Gray, social engineering expert and open source intelligence professional in the cybersecurity community, on the importance of open source intelligence and how he has a career specifically in that niche. Coming up. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. In this episode, I'm so excited to continue the open source intelligence theme for the month of June by interviewing one of the best experts in that specific niche in our field, Joe Gray. Now, Joe is a veteran of the U.S. Navy Submarine Force, and he's the inaugural winner of the DerbyCon Social Engineering Capture the Flag event. He was awarded the DerbyCon Black Badge, and he's the founder and principal instructor at the OSINT and founder and lead investigator at Transparent Intelligence Services. Joe is absolutely the expert that we want to interview on really everything open source intelligence, methodologies, tool set, the way he approaches his career and his job and his transactional tactical activity. I'm super excited. Now, be sure to subscribe because we're going to be continuing the OSINT theme for the month of June. And next week, I'll be showing you technical how-to of stepping through and building a Raspberry Pi with the TraceLabs VM, which is a kit build just for OSINT type work. So very excited. Be sure to check that out. Now, if you're new here, this is Simply Cyber, the YouTube channel designed to help you make and take a cybersecurity career further, faster. Sometimes we do labs like next week, and sometimes we interview industry experts like Joe. So if that's interesting to you, please check out some of the other videos on the channel. Now, let's get right into the interview with Joe and hear about OSINT as a career. All right, so talking with Joe Gray, OSINT expert. Joe, thanks for being with us today. For those who are, unfamiliar with what, open source intelligence or OSINT actually is, can you break it down?
Sure. Thanks for having me first and foremost. OSINT, open source intelligence, it is more or less the art of the snoop. If we want to make it as generic as possible, it's kind of like a 3-year-old in the number of questions they have about everything. So if we want to look at this from the perspective of how this actually applies within the information security and even intelligence spaces, there are a variety of types of intelligence, right? We have signals intelligence, which that's kind of NSA's thing. We have geospatial intelligence, which is National Geospatial Intelligence Agency's thing. We have technical intelligence. We have financial intelligence, cyber threat intelligence. Technically, there's tech intelligence, image intelligence, social media intelligence, and so on. Open source intelligence basically is taking information from publicly available sources, so think overt, and using them in an intelligence context. And the intelligence context is probably the most important operator in that definition, because the intelligence context is how we answer questions such as, is this legal? Is this ethical? Is this within scope? How does this further my investigation? Why do I care? And you can collect everything about everyone, everybody, every entity, but if you don't have an intelligence context, it's just information. And there's a significant difference between information and intelligence. Because if we look at, say, the intelligence lifecycle, the final stage of that is dissemination. And basically what we as investigators do is we collect information, we analyze it, we determine the intelligence context, we develop a narrative or a sequence of events to allow, via the dissemination, someone to consume it and make a decision. And that's ultimately what we're leading up to.
So when I, like a lot of people in the cybersecurity community, have heard of OSINT, but they don't necessarily use it. And there's all sorts of everybody can Google, right? And people have Googled their ex-girlfriends or ex-boyfriends or people they went to high school with or whatever. From the actual utility of OSINT skills and capabilities, Joe, is it more like an organizational capability to achieve a goal, or is it more individuals using it as like a complement to a complement to a actual function of some other capacity?
It's D, all the above.
Okay.
So there are various applications for OSINT. If we want to look at the offensive side of security, when we talk about the passive reconnaissance phase, if we go through the quote ethical hacking process, passive reconnaissance is collecting OSINT about the organization that we are about to attempt to compromise, obviously with their consent. On the defensive side, it could be used in, say, cyber threat intelligence to better understand a particular adversary and collect additional information about. I try not to focus on the indicators of compromise because that can change very quickly, but stuff about their TTPs and other nuances, things they may not necessarily be aware of, things like their user agent string, their language settings, Google tracking codes, that kind of stuff. You could use it on that side. It's obviously used in counterintelligence. There are fraud investigators, law enforcement, military. They all use various types of OSINT. They may not know that's what it's called. I see that very heavily within like emergency management, professional and private investigators, even law firms. They do a lot of OSINT type stuff, but they don't know that it's called OSINT. So oftentimes you can have some really good conversations with people about it after you get past the big scary OSINT word. To be honest, some of the people whose analytic capabilities have terrified me the most have been certified forensic accountants. And it's not that they have like super awesome OSINT chops. Some do, some don't. But the part of it that really impresses me is the way that they can take two seemingly abstract concepts and be able to find a correlation between the two.
What is something in OSINT that people get wrong, or it's just like it's a myth, a mistaken belief that most people have?
A lot of people fail to fall under a particular scope. So they see everything as in scope all the time. And in some cases, that can be true, especially if you're talking like a fraud or a law enforcement or even a threat intelligence investigation. But for my own personal ethics, I have certain limits that I will not exceed as part of an investigation. Like, for example, if I'm doing an external risk assessment against a company, I may be asked, okay, go get the data breach information and tell us the passwords. Cool. I have no problem sharing passwords generically with them and saying, okay, these are the passwords I found associated with email addresses or likenesses to your domain. The line that I don't like to cross is the one that I don't want to say, this is Bob in accounting's password, because I can't ensure, number one, that everyone is going to be ethical with the information they are provided. And secondly, password reuse is such a problem that if I gave you Bob in accounting's password, who's to say that the abusive supervisor that Bob reports to in accounting won't try to use that password to log into their personal email or their personal social media accounts? And going back to password reuse, for the untrained people, there's a very strong possibility that that is the same. That's one side of it. So the way I counteract that is I will say, okay, here are the passwords that I collected about your users. Here are some statistics based on it. So the average length of all the passwords that I found to be breached from your domain is 9.3 characters. You use 2.4 typefaces, and based on reuse, I saw that same password used on average 1.4 times, something to that effect. I'll give those meaningful statistics, but I won't say who the password belongs to. Understanding that, yes, someone who's persistent could go off and find that information, probably in the same places that I would. But the thing about it is that's making them have to willingly jump through those hoops to do it. And that's going to create, to some degree, an evidence trail to tie it to them and get them in trouble. The other side that I see that's kind of problematic with an OSINT, and it's not necessarily problematic, is people want to collect everything about everybody all the time. Well, we factor in how many people there are in the world, how many people are on the internet, And then in countries like the United States, where data is a commodity, there are data brokers like Experian, Equifax, LexisNexis. They constantly collect information from a variety of sources. They enrich it, and then they turn around and sell it to somebody else. And that's how eventually it trickles to things like Spokio or True People Search or Family Tree Now or whatever. So as a practitioner, we tend to kind of want to be those data brokers. We want to collect everything about everyone. And oftentimes during an investigation, I will look at a lot of stuff, but I only collect what I can assign an intelligence context to. And more importantly, and I actually have a course that I'm developing for this, we don't really sit and talk about retention requirements and how we securely destroy the evidence that we collect later on. We just collect it and then we data hoard it. We either power off the VM and we never touch it again, or we just leave it hanging out on our hard drives or wherever it is. So we just leave it where we stored it, and that's that. But it's really important to think through these things. Like during an investigation, we hear all the time, okay, you need a dedicated system. Oftentimes we hear people talking about virtual machines. You create your own virtual machine, you get all of your API keys, everything you need. You take a snapshot of it, you clone it, you do the investigation. When the investigation's over, you turn it off. Cool. That's not bad advice. My recommendation would be, though, to actually take those files and put them on some sort of removable media, pull them off of the computer you are using, and set a calendar reminder. If you are not bound by any particular retention requirement, like something enacted by a law for, say, FERPA, FISMA, HIPAA, Gramm-Leach-Bliley, GDPR, et cetera, as well as something like PCI, if you're not bound to store something for 7 years or whatever, or you are not bound to destroy after 6 months, you should periodically review that information and ask yourself, do I still need this? And if the answer to that question is yes, okay, set another reminder for yourself. If the answer is no, then you need to destroy it. So ultimately, what I'm getting at with that is whenever I do any form of investigation, if I use a virtual machine, I put it on either an external hard drive or a thumb drive, depending on the size of the file. I pull it off my computer, make sure everything is removed. Obviously, there are ways potentially for someone with physical access to my system, or if they were able to compromise it with malware, to potentially cause problems. But for the most part, it's off my computer, it's off the network, it's in an air-gapped box. If someone broke into my house and stole it and was able to pick the lock and get in, okay, great, then they can do something. And honestly, the types of boxes I use, they're fire safe and water resistant, but they are not very lock picking resistant. I lost the key to one of mine and I had to pick the lock myself, so it wasn't that hard. But doing that can be very important. Another thing I do for some investigations, instead of using a virtual machine, I have a Raspberry Pi that has the TraceLabs Kali operating system on it. And basically what I do is, I'm doing an investigation. Cool. So I put the TraceLabs Kali instance on the micro SD card for it. I power it up. I get all of my API keys in. Some of it's scripted, some of it isn't. Once that stuff's in, I do the investigation. Once it's over, I pop out that micro SD card. I've got this nice little case I bought on Amazon for under $10. I assign a label to it. Typically, micro SD cards are only about big enough to put a number on it. So I use my label maker, I put a number on it, and then I catalog it. I put it in the storage container, and then I set a calendar reminder. Typically, if I don't have anything telling me review after 3 months or destroy after 6 months, I tend to just wait 6 months. I go back, I look at it. Okay, cool. If I don't need it, depending on the type of media, sometimes I pull out the sledgehammer. Sometimes I just put it through my shredder. I've set fire to a couple of removable drives just for fun. And then I doubled down with some water on it after it burned a little bit. And then I pulled out the sledgehammer. So it really just varies in how you want to go about doing it. Some industries, some companies may have processes, so don't go off and just start smashing external hard drives with a sledgehammer without proper consent if you're thinking about this professionally. But various data types also have other requirements associated with that as well. Like you might have to overwrite the data like 7 times or something like that, which can become time consuming. But at the end of the day, it's better just to go ahead and do it and then go to bed while the software is doing its thing, wake up and then destroy it, just so that you are not liable, because OSINT is global. That's one of the major things you have to think about. As OSINT professionals, when we do investigations, especially when we're dealing with residents of California, New York, or the European Union, we have laws like GDPR, CCPA, and New York Shield that afford protections for citizens of those locations. And like GDPR, for example, if I suffer any form of data breach or any adverse event that releases their data, I could potentially be fined 4% of my global annual revenue, which, jokes on them, in terms of that 4%. It's not going to be much, but at the same time, that's 4% on my behalf. And it's just something that you've got to kind of keep in mind. And a lot of OSINT practitioners don't really talk about that, in my opinion, enough. And I'll finish this line of thought up with this. So I'm deathly terrified of snakes. So to try to overcome this fear, I've joined a few groups online that are like snake enthusiasts, where you discuss snakes. People try to identify snakes. And one is even like snake bite support. If you get bit by a snake, you post into this forum, and then you can actually broker a conversation between one of the attending physicians in the group and your actual physician. But oftentimes in these groups, they talk about myths. And a myth I always heard growing up was with venomous snakes, which, based on where I'm from, people around here don't call them venomous. They call them poisonous, but correct terminology, venomous. Venomous snakes, especially baby venomous snakes, they don't have any control over their envenomation, right? So if you get bit by like a baby copperhead, they just dump all their venom and they're more dangerous. That's in fact a myth. It's incorrect. But with that myth, to draw the correlation, especially with people just breaking into OSINT, just starting to unlock that passion and start to build out their capabilities, they tend to throw everything in the kitchen sink at everything, just like the myth says that like baby copperheads do. So ultimately what ends up happening is they collect way too much and they don't fully secure it. And then, problems can arise from there.
So individuals who are looking to, I guess, kind of see if OSINT is their passion, or, add that skill to their toolbox if they're, already in the field or something like that, what would you advise, or what would you recommend in order to see if it works for you, or what, it's not just use a bunch of tools and there you go. I mean, I'm sure there's some methodology or some kind of quote unquote lab that you might recommend.
Absolutely. So I'll start on the more free side of things, and then I'll go into some of the more paying things. On the free side, shameless promotion. I have a wiki, wiki.theoscension.com. It's spelled OSINT Ion. So the domain is theosintion.com. It's just pronounced like Ascension, but wiki.theoscension.com. The wiki has a lot of resources there. I've not updated it in a while, so it's going to be growing pretty tremendously in the near future. I also have a Discord server of between 1,500 and 2,000 people. The URL for that is discord.theoscension.com. There's also a link to the Discord server in the wiki, so you could do that. But
I've got it pulled up here, Joe, for people to see on the
exactly
feed.
That's exactly what prompted me. I was like, oh wait, I did put a link to the Discord server there. So with the wiki, you don't even have to sign up or sign in. Most of the stuff is free. There's some things that you do that are student only in there. The Discord server, it's free as well. I've got various categories for that. In addition to that, you could listen to podcasts like Michael Basil's OSINT and Privacy podcast. They talk about OSINT from time to time on Chris Hadnagy's Social Engineer podcast. Jenny Radcliffe talks about it on hers. Of course, Gerald has guests that talk about it on his as well. Beyond that as well, there's things like the OSINT Curious project. You could join TraceLabs, the Slack channel for TraceLabs. They are the organization that run the Missing Person CTF or OSINT Search Party. It used to be the Missing Person CTF. Now it's called the OSINT Search Party. They have a Slack that is kind of similar to the OSINT Discord, but they have ongoing operations where you can actually assist in looking for a missing person. You log into the Trello board, you do that kind of stuff. So that's one OSINT adjacent nonprofit that you could get involved with. Additionally, Innocent Lives Foundation, which is Chris Hadnagy's nonprofit, you could work with that, but I do want to caution you, you could run into some pretty heavy stuff because they do leverage OSINT and social engineering techniques to unmask child predators and turn them over to law enforcement. So you could see some pretty heavy stuff there. The vetting process is pretty intense for that. In addition to that, you have things like Operation Safe Escape. They seek primarily to help domestic violence victims get out and stay out. There are some OSINT angles to that as well. And also you have National Child Protection Task Force. They do pretty much the same as the others, as the other nonprofits, but they have a specific emphasis on helping to protect children. Full disclosure, I do have volunteer advisory roles with both Safe Escape and National Child Protection Task Force. Beyond that, there are other Discord servers like Searchlight or Bellingcat or something like that. Moving away from like the purely free stuff. Actually, before I do that, InfoSec Twitter has a lot of OSINT stuff. Just follow hashtag OSINT. That could probably help you out pretty tremendously as well. Moving away from the free stuff into some of the like paid stuff. Through the OSINT, I do offer live courses from time to time. The tempo is about to slow down a little bit with that, but I'm also working to release some on-demand material on a variety of platforms. So that'll be lower cost than the live courses, but some of the material will be a little bit different because I won't be demonstrating certain techniques out of the respect for people's privacy or whatnot. Even if I have their consent to search for something about them, I would not record it and memorialize that. But if you follow along with me on social media, you'll see those announcements. My courses, I have right now, I'm developing 2 new courses. But of the existing catalog, I have 6 courses. 3 of them are 4 hours, 1 is 6 hours, and 2 are 8 hours. They range in price from $100 to $240. I have coupon codes that are for 15% off. I share almost anywhere and everywhere. So, you know, I don't want to be too much of a teaser, but do a little bit of OSINT and you'll find the coupon codes. In addition to that, there are other training providers out there. You have organizations like OSINT Combine out of Australia. They've got some inexpensive courses and they've got some really expensive courses. Heath Adams, the Cyber Mentor, has 1 single course. Michael Basil turned over Intel Techniques training to someone else, but that training is fairly inexpensive as well. SANS has a course, but it is SANS pricing. Actually, they have 2 courses, but again, SANS pricing is in effect. So that may be something you may need to get your employer to pay for. Beyond that, there are other places you can find OSINT training, things like the McAfee Institute. I think Intelligence 471 does some training from time to time. It's not, I don't have an all-inclusive list. It's always changing. There's some stuff on Udemy. I've not taken the Udemy courses, so your mileage may vary. It could be feast or it could be famine. I don't want to say anything direct just because I haven't taken any of the courses on there, so I can't speak to them. But I do know pretty much with anything on Udemy, you're going to get some courses that are going to be really good, and you're going to get some that are quite the opposite. There are other things, from time to time, people offer things at trainings, at conferences, whenever it's safe to return back to in-person. I've had a couple of conversations with some conferences, late quarter 3, early quarter 4, for bringing some in-person training to them. Just be on the lookout. It's always a moving target. You may have some people that give a lot of training all the time, and then you may have some people that just do it from time to time on the training side. But just a few general exercises to kind of get better about OSINT. Go and look at the list of flags for Chris Hadnagy's Social Engineering Capture the Flag. The flag list, just pick a company and find a way to passively collect that information. Find out what the badges at the company look like. Find out who their dumpster vendor is. Find out what operating system they use. There are ways to find all this stuff out without ever breaking the proverbial plane and allowing the company to detect. That works really well on the business OSINT side. On the people OSINT side, I would say start out with like friends and family, and then move to people that you kind of know, but you don't know that well. And just go see what you can find about them. And then from there, let them know what you found and provide guidance on what you recommend. Do you recommend that they get the information removed, or do you recommend that they leave it? So that's some pretty good exercises to help you get better about it. And then as you develop your workflow and your technique, you will get to a point where you can pretty much just do it in your sleep. You can do it with your eyes closed. Like when I'm doing investigations, the only time I really open my eyes is to read whatever's on the screen. I've done this. I've done various investigations so many times that it's like, okay, for a business investigation, I know I'm going to start at this website, then move to this website, then move to this website, then I'm going to check this. Then I'll go looking through their career pages. Then I'll go looking at LinkedIn, and then based on the information I found in all those places, then I'll decide my next direction. With people, it's very much the same. I think you're muted.
Thank you. I was muted. So you've mentioned, you've mentioned a ton of great resources, and I pulled up the flags for people to see. So I'll try to put as many of these in the description below so people can get to it. Obviously, your resources, Joe, are going to be excellent. One thing you had mentioned that I'm curious, what's the accessibility? So you mentioned the TraceLabs kind of CTF missing person thing. To me, like, I'm not a OSINT person, right? So it's a little intimidating. Could I even bring value to that? Maybe not. So I don't know. Is it set up in such a way that people who are not really experts yet could still contribute and be part of those type of events?
Absolutely. So within the TraceLabs website, and I'll get you the link here and put it in chat for you. They have a contestant guide that kind of gives a little bit of insight into how to approach that kind of stuff. But the way that competition works is you can have a team of up to 4 people, and you have up to 6 hours to look for anywhere between 6 and 15 missing people. They could be anywhere in the world. And with this, they have a contestant guide, they have a judge's guide. So I recommend that people who are going to compete at a minimum read the contestant guide, but I would also say read the judge's guide as well so that you can understand what the judges are looking for. But with OSINT, so let me back up here. I struggle with the phrase OSINT expert, OSINT guru, any of that. I consider myself to be a student of the game, right? Everybody might be on a different level, but we're all students of the game because OSINT, unlike other aspects of information security, OSINT is ever changing. Resources come, resources go. Social media platforms change their terms of service. They change the things that you could look for and what have you. So it's a constant moving target. So you have to remain a student of the game. It's not like a firewall that, either allows or rejects or logs traffic, because that's pretty much, since the beginning of time for firewalls, that's what they've done. Obviously, there are additional capabilities with some of them and what have you. But with OSINT, everybody has a unique insight, a unique viewpoint. Everybody's going to look at things differently. You can put say the top 5 OSINT analysts in the world side by side and tell them to investigate something, it's going to be like a chili cook-off. And what I mean by that is, you're going to have several people who are ultimately creating chili, but the steps they take to arrive at the actual chili will be different. Some people may not use very many seasonings in their chili. Some people may go bean free. Some people may go vegetarian. Some people may bake or roast jalapenos before they put it in the chili. Some people may cook the ground beef sous vide style before they put it in the chili. There's a variety of ways, and ultimately, just because you've not been around OSINT very long, if you know how to use a search engine and connect dots, you can be very powerful within OSINT, because the way this competition works is you have your teams, you submit everything. As it's submitted, before you get credit for it, a judge reviews it and validates that this is not something released by the media, law enforcement, or other missing persons organizations like Web Sleuth, Charlie Project, etc. Then they verify that you used a free tool. You can't use anything paid. It can require authentication, but it has to be free. So they verify that, and then they verify, yes, this is intelligence. This is legitimate. And before anybody gets any wild ideas, if you go trying to, quote, create intelligence about someone to get points, you will get caught and you will be permabanned. But anyway, after they validate it, then they accept it. You get the points for it, and you go on. And like I said, it lasts about 6 hours. So your team, you're looking for all these people, you're submitting information. There's a variety of ways that you can go about it. I've seen, or rather heard of teams where everybody on the 4 people on the team are looking for 4 specific things, and they just look for the same thing for everyone. I've seen firsthand, because the teams I've been on, we've all just taken a person and we look for everything about that person. We store some information, typically within the Slack, about the person, and then after a while, we all just change to a different person. We review what the other people had, and then we move on to find more stuff. But ultimately, what happens is after the competition is over, it all gets put into a database. It gets deduplicated. There's some narrative associated with it, and then the appropriate authorities that's handling the case receives that information. So that's why it's OSINT for good. And full disclosure, just to disclose, I'm not a staffer with TraceLabs. I've been a judge. I've been a competitor. I have helped with the judge and the contestant guide. The OSINT is an official training partner, but I am not further affiliated with TraceLabs. So anything I said about like how they do things, it is subject to change, and I'm just disclosing that I'm not speaking authoritatively on that.
Excellent, and I'm sure the law enforcement community appreciates all of the help and the intelligence that these OSINT practitioners are able to deliver. So, Joe, is there this might be like saying which one's your favorite kid, but is there like a go-to OSINT tool that you love, or like it's no matter what your investigation is, you're absolutely always going to use this tool for people to go check out? I'd be curious, what's your Swiss Army knife, if you will?
I tend to focus less on the tools and more on the analytic processes themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But from a tool perspective, I am a pretty big fan of ReconNG. It has a lot of use for business OSINT, but not so much for people. On the people side, I would say it's probably the What's My Name tool, which is also included in ReconNG. It's just called Profiler. But the number one most powerful OSINT tool on the planet is the human mind, in my opinion. Because tools are going to come and go. The ability to search something on social media or whatever, that's going to come and go. The way that Google runs their algorithm, or your search engine of choice runs their algorithm, it can change as well. But the human mind's ability to connect point A with point B with point C, that ultimately cannot be augmented. So, yep, that's a beautiful little Recon NG there. So
I have my Kelly box up at the moment, so it seemed timely to pull it up. But yeah, the methodology, right? That doesn't go end of life, right?
Not really. I mean, you can tweak it every now and then, but at the end of the day, it's pretty much all going to be the same. A little bit of a shameless promotion here. In August, my book, Practical Social Engineering, will be released. And about 1/3 of that book will actually be OSINT. If you want to pull up the book, just go to practicalsocialengineering.com. It'll redirect you to the No Starch page for it. Right now, if you use coupon code pre-order, you get 25% off with No Starch. So like I said, it's about 1/3 of the book is OSINT. And then I cover the offensive side of social engineering, how you actually do it. And then the last third of the book is all about how you defend against social engineering. And if you can also get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Target, etc. But you can use the coupon code with No Starch. And also, if you buy the print book via No Starch, you also get the PDF and early access to it right now, which if you scroll down, Gerald, you can actually see how much you get right now for the early access.
Oh yeah, right there, $27.99, right?
Right. Well, if you scroll down further, it'll actually show you what's currently available for early access.
I see.
Everything here in red is what you can read right now. So literally everything but 5 chapters will be ready for you to get right now.
Oh, that's very cool. That's a nice option.
It is. And, No Starch, they're a really awesome publisher, really easy to deal with. They've been very forgiving regarding timelines and, life and what have you, being life and, 2020 being 2020 and what have you. So pretty awesome there. A fun fact about the cover art, if you can scroll up very briefly. So if you're familiar with the No Starch death metal t-shirts with the death metal logos, the artist that created those is the same one that created the cover of this book.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, this is a very this is an awesome cover art. Sometimes it's hit or miss, but this one's good.
Especially for the topic of social engineering. I just realized this yesterday when I was having a conversation, ironically, with another podcast. When I first started writing, I was like, oh, I want to write for O'Reilly. I want to get an animal book.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for various reasons, it didn't work out. But I wrote for No Starch, and instead of having one animal on the cover of my book, this one has 2. It has the wolf and the sheep.
Yes. And it's brilliant. It's, this is really cool. I like that. And I like No Starch books in general anyways. So yeah, good on you. I didn't know you had done this show. This is like a bonus for me and the viewers. This is cool.
Hey, there you go. I'm really excited for it. I'm really proud of it. I'm currently chasing down the person who is writing the foreword. I'm not going to say who, but there's a good chance you have heard of them. I'll just leave that.
Excellent.
Being the mysterious person I am, obviously not turning my camera on, I've got to continue the mystery here.
Oh yeah, well, it'll leave people wanting to know more, right? And follow up. So definitely check out this book. I'm going to get this, Joe. I'll have to figure out a way to get you to autograph it, maybe at the next conference that we will go to.
I have already bought some Sharpies for that purpose.
Okay.
So I don't know what my travel schedule is going to look like. I don't know if this will be out by DEF CON. I don't know if No Starch is doing a signing at DEF CON.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I have had conversations with 2 conferences about doing in-person training. So those would be after the book release date. So I'll definitely do a signing at those if I can coordinate it. Beyond that, there's a conference I'm very intimately connected with. I'm a member of their committee. I don't know if that conference is going to be in person or virtual yet.
Mm-hmm.
But if it is in person, I can almost guarantee you that I will do everything within my power to make sure No Starch has a booth and there will be a signing there if it occurs in person. And I apologize for being vague about it, but I just don't want to say anything to inadvertently put my foot in my mouth In a joking manner, I walked out to the mailbox today without wearing shoes. So right now is not the time of day to put my foot in my mouth.
Yeah, no, completely understood, and that's fine. I mean, if people will be able to get the book in general, and then use their OSINT skills to find out where you're going to be to get it signed.
That doesn't even require OSINT skills. That literally just requires following me on social media.
Okay.
Because I announce everything. That also being said, though, I'm not going to do it quite immediately, but at some point there will be a companion course to go alongside that book. So be on the lookout for that. I will probably put it in the same formats that I'm doing everything else. So with my courses, previously I've only done things live or in person. What I'm starting to do now is I'm trying to get everything that I've done live converted to an on-demand format. And as I create new courses, I'm going ahead and doing all the stuff to release the on-demand the same time I announce the live dates. And then if something happens in person, great. So that'll be occurring soon as well. Also on that topic, though, the two courses that I alluded to that I'm creating, one is securing the collected intelligence. So that's walking you through how to use encryption and integrity tools, like file integrity monitoring, file level, and full disk encryption. I've got a little bit of extra secret sauce I'm putting in there as well, just so that you can understand how to properly secure things that you've collected, as well as determining your retention and a little bit about destruction. The other course is Introduction to OSINT Report Writing. I'm going to walk through what goes into a good report. There's going to be a lot of boring stuff, don't get me wrong, because writing is boring a lot of the time. But I'll also be showing how to use tools to capture intelligence, things like Hunchly and Zotero. I've got a few tricks up my sleeve. If anyone follows me on social media and saw that survey that I did a couple of weeks ago about like packet captures and network logs and browser history as an OSINT tool, spoiler, it has to do with that course. So it's going to be in that. The live version of it will be a 2-part course. At the conclusion of the first portion, I'll be providing students a zip file containing quite a bit of data in a mostly unstructured format and a reporting template, and they can write a report and send it to me. I will provide them feedback on it. The second half will be me showing this is what my report for this looked like, and showing what worked really well for the students and what didn't work so well. Because at the end of the day, you can collect all the intel in the world, but if you don't disseminate it, whether it be verbal report, written report, tickets, or just taking action, it's all for nothing. Mm-hmm. So while reporting is boring, like, don't get me wrong, writing reports, no one will get any argument out of me that is boring. But the reality with it is it's the most important aspect, because if you're doing it as a consultant or if you're doing it as part of your job, ultimately that's what you're getting paid for.
Right. Yeah.
It's for the report. They want you to translate intel or nerd to business or operational decisions. So don't discount reporting. But that's what I've got cooking up right now on the training front. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of things coming out in the near future. So it's a very exciting time for me.
I like it. And I just noticed too. So, I mean, Joe, you're giving us a ton of great stuff. It looks like you can download Chapter 4 if you're on the fence, if you're not already sold on how awesome this book's going to be, and you want to see what Joe's writing style is like and what the value is of this book. It looks like you can download Chapter 4 here and actually get a taste of the entree before ordering it, if you will. So I would encourage people to check that out also.
Most certainly. Absolutely.
Yeah. Joe, thank you so much for being with us today. And I'm going to, put all the links. People are going to go check out your stuff, and, best wishes when the book launches. I'll be tracking that.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me. It's been my pleasure, and everybody be safe. And I will surveil everyone sooner or later.
Oh man, that was great. Thank you, Joe. And be sure to check out the OSINT website. There'll be links in the description below. Check out his Discord server. It is excellent, and you can engage with other like-minded people on OSINT topics and also coordinate for those TraceLabs activities and events. I'm hoping to do one. There's one June 26th. That's why I want to do this build out of the kit on the Raspberry Pi next week so you can play along and perhaps participate. So until next time, stay secure.